London's radio station.
BBC Radio London.
If, like me, you're a fan of dance, this is great because we're losing so many magazines. I am so pleased to say there is a new dance magazine that's out, which is going to be Savannah Saunders, the editor. I had a look at it, actually. It's absolutely stunning. The Wonderful World of Dance. You know how much I love dance in every single shape and form. And if you are a dancer, or if, like me, you just love dance and you love reading about it, finding out more about it, the people in it, then as I was saying to Robert Elms, seldom do we ever celebrate a new magazine coming in hard copy. Usually we lament the fact that we've lost another. Well, two reasons we're doing this story. One, it's a brand new magazine that's out on the shelves. And two, it is about dance, the wonderful world of dance. It is a bit like Vogue, but with a dance twist. And its first ever front cover features Beyonce of ballet, Yana Selenko. It started off as a passion project for the editor, Savannah Saunders. And I'm really pleased to say Savannah joins us on the afternoon show. Hello.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
No, not at all. I will always bang the drum for dance and new magazines because they are so they're the luxury that most of us can afford once in a while. Actually, just to buy yourself time. Basically, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think dance is so beautiful and I love everything about dance. I couldn't agree with you more.
So are you a dancer? Were you a dancer?
So when I was growing up in Australia,
What part of Australia?
I was originally from Adelaide.
Right.
So I wanted to be a ballerina. My plan was to be a ballerina until I was 26 and then a lawyer. And I had all planned out. So I would go to school and I was a straight A student. And after school, I would rush to the ballet studio. I would dance from 4 till 9 every single night, plus the weekends. I'd take a bus home for an hour by myself as a young girl. And then when I got into my first ballet company, I got a lead role in a children's ballet company. My mum became really unwell, and so I had to give up ballet and look after my brothers and sisters. And basically I had to go get a job as well to look after them and to look after myself. So I went into the corporate world, came to London eventually, and while I was here, I started the wonderful world of dance on the side because it was a passion that never left. Dance
Did
never
you become a
left.
lawyer?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't. Okay. No, but you did ballet on the side. So where were you going to Pineapple? Where were you going?
So I was dancing at The Place and at Dance Works, where I still take an adult class, because I just love dance. I love everything about dance. I love seeing it. I love writing about it. I love looking at the beautiful photos. And the most fulfilling part of my work on this project is talking to dancers and talking to artists, choreographers, artistic directors, ballet dancers. They are amazing people.
And do you know why I'm so grateful you're doing that? Is they are the most modest people. So you've got actors showing off, gosh, I know because I was one, telling us all and sundry about their whole life. And the truly, utterly superhuman talented people like, well, for instance, ballet dancers never want to talk about themselves, don't actually really want to talk at all. In a show, if you say to a dancer, you've got to say a couple of lines, they just squirm with sheer agony, and yet they deliver this, they're supreme athletes, aren't they, basically?
They absolutely are, and they work so hard every single day. It is a dedication that I think almost doesn't exist in other forms of athleticism, because it is not only is it a physical drive, there's an emotional drive as well, because they have to always strive, and they do always strive for perfection. They get up every single day, they go to ballet class.
Stand in front of a mirror.
They take their ballet class, they rehearse all day, they perform at night, they fall into bed sometimes.
Eat rubbish, smoke 20 cigarettes. Don't they? They live the most unhealthy lifestyles.
Well, I've met dancers and one of them's in the magazine, who is a complete health nut now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think actually the dance industry is changing quite a bit, where dance health is now quite an important topic, and I think there is a lot of support and information for dancers to help them be healthier so that they can have better dance careers and longer dance careers as well.
Because that's the other thing, it's such a short career, isn't it? To sacrifice, well, they wouldn't call it a sacrifice, but to give your whole life to something and then to be called a veteran or a geriatric dancer at the age of 29 is so painful, isn't it?
Absolutely. And one of the questions that I often ask dancers when I interview them is, what have they thought about for the second act of their careers?
Yeah.
To find actually a lot of dancers have got quite substantial plans. And I think, again, the dance industry has changed in that dancers are now being supported. I've interviewed dancers, for example, at the Scottish Ballet, where they support up-and-coming choreographers, and I know the Royal Ballet does here as well, and as do many companies. So I think it's interesting that life is short as a dancer.
I think the listeners know what I'm going to mention to you, and you were probably there. Sadler's Wells did a production called The Elders. Did you see it?
Yes.
Where they brought all the older dancers back, and I was just crying. I don't know whether you were. It moved me so much to see what age does to even a dancer's body. You know, they all had the grace and the beautiful arms, but their bodies, you could see, were dealing with arthritis, rheumatism, couldn't you? I mean,
Absolutely.
But they were out there doing it, and then they brought the young dancers on to dance with them. It blew me away, actually. What a wonderful idea that was, wasn't it?
It was fantastic, and I loved that production. I thought it was fantastic that Sadler's Wells put it on. I'm a huge fan of Sadler's Wells, and I think it really makes the audience and makes the industry ask themselves, what is it, or how can we continue to provide opportunities for dancers to continue beyond what is their pinnacle of their perfectionist careers, so that, because so many,
some of them teach, don't they?
They teach, they go into physiotherapy. I think a lot of the young dancers now are doing things on the side earlier in their career, sort of preparing. I've spoken to dancers who have done degrees on the side. They now run their own sort of YouTube channels, and they've got social media followings that are bigger than some football players. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, all of what we're discussing, Savannah and I, give you an insight into what she has chosen to put into this magazine. So it's not, there have been other dance magazines out there. This goes well beyond that, because these are in-depth interviews. There are wonderful features. For instance, I just love Stravinsky, the photographs of Stravinsky and the rehearsals. And I don't know, these are in black and white. I don't know where you got hold of these photographs.
So I was really lucky that the Royal Academy of Dance provided me with those courtesy.
Oh my goodness. Obviously, I've never seen them before.
They have this incredible archive of photos, which they gave me access to. So I have to thank them for that.
Do you know why I love these? Is not only just seeing the master at work and the company, but how even the dancers' bodies have changed. If you look at Pavlova, she has a completely different physique to a contemporary dancer.
Absolutely.
Now. And these girls are completely different, shorter, all much shorter, because dancers now come in all shapes and sizes, which was never the case, was it?
Right.
For some time. So you've got a whole feature on that, which is wonderful. And then we talk about the cover. Now, explain the cover to me and who this is.
Okay, so on the cover is the prima ballerina Yana Salenko, who is a principal guest artist here in London with the Royal Ballet, but she's also the principal dancer over at the Berlin State Ballet. And this cover, for me, I'm a huge fan of her, but one of the things, like you said, I wanted to do the things differently. So this magazine, as you say, very much like the Vogue of Dance, I collaborated with a couture fashion designer to put her in a beautiful gown. Went over to Berlin with a fantastic photographer, Pickled Thoughts Photography, and we spent 3 hours in the studio with 5 gowns, and the cover is one of the most beautiful covers ever. And actually, I'm to the right of this photo. I've lifted up her dress and thrown it into the air.
It's you that did that, because it is just a wonderful, the movement in it is just absolutely beautiful. And again, you know what I envy, look at her feet, it's all about
she is the most incredible dancer, but she's also the most incredible person as well. She is wonderful.
And the arch, you can't get an arch like that. If I had a baby, I would have kept bending their feet so that their arches and their turnouts would have been there forever. Isn't that awful? I love this. So this is Pietra Mello Pittman. Now, I practice yoga, and I can only just honestly, what an extra. Well, the worst thing for anyone in a yoga class, I don't know, do you do yoga?
I do yoga and Pilates.
Is when a ballet dancer comes in and
yes,
you
I
just
hate
think,
it.
well, let's all go home. Because, what's taken me 25 years to learn to do, they just do on the way in.
Yes,
and just
absolutely.
explain what he's doing. He's literally on one arm with his legs almost at 180 degrees above him, open, holding one up and one in a sort of what we call a retiré in ballet. Just extraordinary. And I love the fact you've got dancers being interviewed by dancers. That's very clever. They know what questions to ask then, don't they?
Absolutely. I've been lucky to build this wonderful team of contributors both here in the UK and in the US. And I've been really sort of quite specific about having contributors who are dancers, dance teachers. They're in companies, they're graduates of prestigious companies, because I want to be able to give a voice to the dance industry from within the industry. And it is really interesting when a dancer interviews another dancer, because they do ask different questions.
Of course they do, yeah. You in this first edition, is this going to be monthly or is it?
It's a quarterly.
It's a quarterly,
stage, yeah.
Because you can't produce this quality all the time. I mean, this is, often you pick up a magazine, you think, well, this is all advertisements. What is there in here for me to read? These are the interviews that you will never be given. You seriously won't, because it's covering New York, American dance companies, Argentinian dance company, Brazilian dance, all these dancers that work around the world asking about their life, their lifestyle, their training, their aims and their ambitions. The choreographers as well. You've got Calvin Royale III talking about his American Ballet theatre company, being interviewed again by a dancer. I just love seeing these people in their practice. I love watching people in their rehearsal gear as much as in their costumes,
Absolutely.
don't you?
Yeah.
Because I love seeing what they wear for rehearsal. It's all held together literally by thread. And also, now this is a chapter. Every time I interview a dancer, and I feel so negative asking them this, but you've done a whole chapter on it, dancing with injuries, because they are all dancing with injuries, aren't they?
Absolutely. I think one of the greatest challenges that dancers face and the dance industry faces is dealing with injuries, injury prevention, and also injury having to heal. I know that dancers have travelled internationally to seek different treatments, but again, I think the dance industry now is working really hard to be able to support dancers and make sure that they don't get the injuries in the first place. But it's inevitable, they do, and it does challenge their careers.
My goodness, I went, and I'm not going to name names, but they've been in the press this weekend. Very famous man has just married a ballet dancer, and I was at the performance where he injured himself and I don't know if he's ever danced again, to be honest. And I was with a girl who was from the Royal Ballet, and she saw it. She said to me, I didn't see it. She said, he's injured himself, but he carried on dancing. And then they brought the curtain down. Yeah. And then they said, ladies and gentlemen, there are free drinks in the bar. We are bringing his understudy in, who'd been watching Big Brother or something in the middle of in the middle of London. They'd got a taxi, brought his who danced at a moment's notice, the lead role. And I'm not sure he's ever danced since. I think he's still connected with ballet, but I don't think he's danced since. And that was just one landing where his foot sickled.
Absolutely. And I think it is very traumatic for dancers when they get injuries. They don't know whether or not they will be able to come back from an injury. Is it going to ruin their career or end it early? And along with not just the physical side of an injury, but the emotional side as well. When, as we've discussed, they've spent their entire lives, often from the age of 3 or 5, preparing for this career that is so very short, and then only to get an injury and then having to contemplate, well, maybe I won't have this career anymore. Or I interviewed a dancer, Lauren Lovett from the New York City Ballet just a couple of days ago, and she was talking about how she was given the role of her principal role while she was on a couch recovering from an injury she has sustained as a soloist, and it felt like quite an anticlimax for her, because she dreamt of this moment of being given this fantastic conversation about you've now a principal, and it was literally a quick call or a quick chat while she was laid up with an injury.
And yet, I mean, and I know, we're saying that there's more positives to come out of dance now, but it was a ruthless.
Absolutely.
You've seen the documentaries, and I can't remember the one where they can't. A member of I think it was the Russian ballet couldn't get a visa, so they went, well, we'll stick so and so on, and then they went, you're so old, you're far too old to play Odette, and this girl basically said, look, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart so that the show will go on, and they were saying, but you're old, but anyway, look, you're the best we've got, and I just thought, oh, can you imagine any other career where you'd be spoken to like that?
Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It was ruthless, wasn't it?
It can be ruthless, absolutely. And I think it is about this perfection, and it is a very competitive, but I have to say all the dancers and the artistic directors and the choreographers that I've spoken with, which is a lot, they are all actually really positive.
I think they have to be, don't you?
Yes,
they have to change.
Yeah, I think it has changed.
Are you going to interview Sergei, the bad boy of ballet?
Well, I would love to, absolutely.
Well, he's been on this show a couple of times, and he'd be perfect for you because he did give it all up, as you know.
Yes, that's right.
And then you think, how can you come back at the level that because he has to be better than everyone else, to be called better than anyone else, covered in tattoos, and completely reinvented himself.
Yeah.
He'd be perfect for you.
Absolutely.
Listen to me sitting here. I also love the fact that you're using, you've got a beauty part because you're using a very famous beauty editor to contribute as well. So when I say there's lots of features in here, it isn't just, interviews with dancers. It's about the history of dance in the past, dance, present and future. Plus beauty. There's a wonderful beauty editor here. Who is it you're using?
Nicola McCulloch.
So you probably follow her on social media. And so much information. It is beautifully presented. The next one will be out when?
I think it's going to be out around before Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where can people buy it in newsagents, or do you need to order this?
So they can, but I think the best thing to do is visit our website for all the details because it's available on iTunes and Google Play. So if they go to thewonderfulworldofdance.com, they'll be able to find out exactly where to get it.
This is from one of our listeners called Beulah. Joe, how wonderful. Well done to your guest. This magazine looks amazing. I shall definitely buy a copy. I love ballet, especially Misty Copeland and Carlos Acosta.
Oh, yes, my goodness.
I nearly crashed the car. I was driving down Church Street in Kensington, and he was crossing, and I literally nearly drove up the traffic lights.
I can imagine. Oh. He's amazing.
Oh.
Yeah.
She says, on my trip to Seville this summer, I visited flamenco tableaus where young, old, plump and slim danced on stage.
Fantastic.
All of them there. They were all amazing, Joe. It was a beautiful thing.
I've been to Seville. I've seen the flamenco. I couldn't agree with you more.
Have you?
Yeah,
I've never
absolutely.
been. But I will tell you something, and again, my listeners know I'm probably going to say this. I grew up in Australia, and this is how weird, when the world becomes a village. I was taught by a man, I'm much older than you, called Rex Reed, who was a choreographer of the Australian Royal Ballet, and he taught with Kathy Gorham. I don't know if that name rings any bells. She was one of the prima dancers. And I was taught by him. I was sitting in Regent's Park, this is no word of a lie, with a guy who was sitting with his dog, and I was talking to him, and I said, oh, do you live on your own or something? And he said, I do now. He said, I had a partner, and we lived together in Australia, and then he came over here, and unfortunately he died whilst we were over here. But he was hard-working dancer, choreographer, and I said, oh, that's interesting. And he said it was Rex Reed, and this is the man that taught me. And it turns out this guy in Regent's Park would have seen me dance as a little girl in Melbourne, because he said I went to every show Rex ever put on. That
is amazing.
Isn't it?
Yeah, that is amazing.
So, all gossip, and that's a world of dance as well. But yeah, it just shrinks the world when something like that happens, doesn't it?
And I think also, dance is the universal language, and it brings us together.
It is, whatever you think of Strictly and all these dance programmes, Billy Elliot. Billy Elliot got boys into ballet school.
Absolutely.
it took that, didn't it, to say, yes, it's got its own strength and athleticism, dancing for boys.
And I think there's a real challenge around getting new audiences to come and see dance. And there's no better place than London in the world to come and experience all types of dance. So I think anything that can be done to introduce dance, whether or not it's through the wonderful Strictly or through theatre shows, dance theatre, if it brings people to dance, brilliant.
Hear, hear. Savannah Saunders, thank you very much indeed. The magazine is called The Wonderful World of Dance and it's out now. 2:30, time for the news.